federal government took another step Friday toward the Prime Minister's promise to shore up Canada's economy by introducing new legislation. Bill C5 aims to remove barriers to domestic free trade, improve labor mobility, and accelerate the approval of so-called nation-building projects. With me now is Transport and Internal Trade Minister Chrystia Freeland. Hi, Minister. It's good to see you again. Thank you for making the time.
It's great to be with you, Vashi.
So a few days ago, we spoke on the prospect of this legislation, and you, I remember very clearly, kind of spoke to the camera, spoke to the opposition, and asked for unanimous consent on something like this in order to see it go forward very quickly. What work have you done to secure the opposition's support of this?
Well, I was in the House of Commons for 4 hours on Thursday night from 6:30 to 10:30. It was a committee of the whole. Most of the questions directed to me were about internal trade, and one of the things actually that was encouraging for me about that was the questions were all tending in the direction of, let's do this faster. And so my response to the colleagues who were asking the questions was, I agree with you. Let's get this done. And I do think, you know, we as a government are asking the opposition to support these measures. So I think this is a policy whose time has come. Economists, wonks, have agreed for a really long time that it's the right thing to do. And now we have a window of opportunity. So let's do it.
At the FMM, we also spoke a little bit about the degree to which this will counter what the United States is doing, because that is certainly what the Prime Minister is selling it as, and yourself too, you know, talking about that giving Canadians the ability to give ourselves what a foreign government can take away. So basically this can supplant. And I wanted to ask you more specifically, because the Conservatives' chief criticism today was this is a small step, but it doesn't go far enough. According to Scotiabank, 19% of Canada's GDP in 2023 was attributed to exports to the United States. If this is between 1 and 4% of an addition to our GDP, that certainly will not supplant what the United States can take away.
Well, except, Vashi, you know, that's 19% of Canada's total GDP, and in fact 20% of Canada's total GDP is accounted for by internal trade. So the business that we do with each other, even today, with the trade barriers that are in place, is significant. And for sure, there are different numbers that different economists come up with on what will the benefits be of internal trade. A robust one that I often cite, because it comes from the work of Trevor Tombe, who has been working on this for years, is if we get this right, we can add $200 billion to our economy. That is really significant, especially for a policy that doesn't cost us anything. But I think the important thing to come back to is everyone agrees that this is a good thing to do. Everyone agrees it's going to make us richer. Everyone actually agrees that it's going to knit our country together. This is also a patriotic thing to do, you know, making it easier for Canadians to do business with each other, for Canadians to travel around the country and keep on working, making it easier for a truck to drive from Halifax to Vancouver. It's also about knitting our country together, and at a time when, you know, this is a critical moment. It is an economic crisis. Surely this is a moment when, if there is a measure available that costs us nothing, that makes us richer, that unites us, let's just do it. And the premiers get it.
If it was so easy, though, and if it was so consequential, why didn't Liberals do it or try to lead the charge on it over the last 10 years? Like, is it as easy as you're pitching it to be? Because right now we've got some federal exemptions coming down with this, a framework for labor mobility. Not all the provinces have signed on to things or done deals with each other. Like, again, I just want to make sure Canadians are clear on what the actual consequence of what you're saying is going to happen is.
Oh, I am not saying that this is easy. I am saying that this is a great thing to do, that it is the right thing to do, that it will help us a lot. But you are totally right to be pointing to the fact that it's hard, that there's a reason it hasn't happened yet. There's a reason that even though there has been an economic consensus that it's the right thing to do, we haven't done it. Each one of those barriers is in place not because, you know, people are dumb or evil. There have been specific reasons they've been put in place. There are, you know, interests that have been in favor of it. But, you know, Vashi, what I have experienced is sometimes what it takes. There's a distance between a really good policy and something which is politically possible. And what you need to be able to do as a country, as political leaders, is seize the moment. You need to recognize the moment and seize the moment. And when it comes to internal trade, this is the moment, and we're seeing it, right? We're seeing it from the premiers. There are 7 different pieces of legislation going on across the country. Provinces are leading the charge. They get it. Regular Canadians get it. I literally get stopped on the street by people who say, wow, internal trade, let's do this. Australia did this 30 years ago, and it has worked. It's made every Australian a little bit richer. It has knit that country more closely together. I do agree with you, it's hard. One of the reasons I'm really glad to be talking to you today is I want Canadians to recognize this is a great opportunity, but we need to seize it. The federal government can't do it alone. We need opposition parties to vote for this in Parliament. And actually, all of us have to help the premiers of the provinces and territories, give them the political support they need to get this across the line.
So when you talk about seizing the moment, I want to talk about the other half of the bill, which is about building projects in the national interest and kind of changing the process by which those projects are approved if deemed to be in the national interest. And I want to put a real life example to you, because the examples provided today at the press conference or late last week at the press conference or in the document are stuff that's kind of already on the way, not controversial. The pitch from Alberta is a brand new pipeline to take oil from Alberta to the northwest coast of British Columbia. Premier Eby says no. Today the Prime Minister said if a province is against it, we're not going to force it on them. So who ultimately will make the decision about that pipeline?
So the legislation being put forward, the One Canada legislation, is about identifying and expediting projects in the national interest. It's about putting ourselves in a country in a position to build big things and to build them with the speed that the moment requires. I really love the examples the Prime Minister gave from our history, right? Expo 67, the St. Lawrence Seaway. Now is a moment when we have to do things at that scale and that speed. I'm the Transport Minister. I am really excited about high-speed rail. I am really excited about, you talked about that Western corridor. It's a Western and Arctic corridor. It includes Grays Bay, Port, and Road. I have had some great conversations with people about that. I'm excited about the possibilities of Roberts Bank Terminal 2 in Vancouver. I'm excited about the possibilities of Contrecoeur in Montreal. So there are some big things. That's why I'm asking you with
great respect, Minister, about a pipeline, because you went through a list of examples that do not have anywhere near the opposition that pipelines to Tidewater in this country have had. As Finance Minister, you oversaw the expenditure of $34 billion taxpayer dollars to just simply get one built. How does this change the scenario for any proponent that might be considering developing one? Does it actually? Because the Prime Minister's words were incredibly confusing on that front.
I am so glad you mentioned TMX. It is one of the things that for my whole life I'm going to be really, really proud to have been involved in and to have gotten it built. That pipeline is exactly what Canada needed, and it meets the moment right now. Think about the threat that we are facing from the United States. How wonderful it is that we have a pipeline in place that today is helping us to diversify this major export. That pipeline today is adding billions upon billions of dollars to the Canadian economy. It is going to deliver more than $1 billion in revenue to the government. So it is a great project, and actually it shows we can get pipelines built.
Taxpayers had to build it. The idea,
you were with me in Saskatoon,
but
Vashi.
the idea, with great respect, the idea that the Prime Minister has put forward is that no longer has to be the case, that it's private proponents that could come forward. We're going to create an environment here where people want to invest and don't feel hesitant to do so. He said not why, they won't be thinking about why, they'll be thinking about how. What in the comments that you've made or the comments that he's made would provide that assurance? Because today I heard more of the gridlock that existed over the last 10 years.
Oh, I totally disagree. Well, I agree and I disagree. Okay. The part I agree with is I think that one of the opportunities we have now, an opportunity born of this crisis, born of Canadians realizing we must hang together or else assuredly we will hang separately, is now truly is a moment when we have an opportunity to build Canada. You were in Saskatoon, so was I. You saw that communique from the premiers and the Prime Minister. It explicitly did talk about pipelines. It talked about lots of projects. It included pipelines. It talked about pipelines to export natural gas and decarbonized oil. So that is very much an option on the table. The Prime Minister was also really clear that projects are going to need the consent of the provinces involved. And he was also really clear that one of the exciting projects that was discussed at that First Minister's meeting was a Western and Arctic corridor. And there was support from premiers, you know, across that whole geography for doing a project like that.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. I'm out of time. Thank you for your time as always. I appreciate it, Minister.
Thank you.